Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. I've noticed that there's this thing called the TierMaker trending around the internet right now, and I thought, you know what, I want in. But I wasn't too sure what topic to go with. Then it hit me. Disney 90s villains. Let's do this! Keep in mind that Disney owns loads of properties, and I only have oh so much space on this list. Which means I'll only be counting 90s villains from Disney's main animation studio, Walt Disney Animation Studios. So don't expect me to include baddies from the likes of Pixar, Disney Toon or Studio Ghibli. Keep in mind that this is not the official definitive list. It's just my personal choices for the list. You're completely welcome to contribute your own in the comments section below. First up is Clayton from Tarzan. Clayton serves as a parallel contrast against the protective and peaceful Tarzan, a character who has more greed than compassion and likes to use his gun to feel like a big man. I do believe that the best thing about Clayton is his voice actor Brian Blessed. His trademark booming posh voice is so perfect for the cruel hunter. But besides Brian Blessed's voice, there's not much else I can praise about him. His anti-environmental intentions and hyper-masculine ego aren't exactly traits that make him remarkable or special, especially when you put him alongside other Disney villains like Gaston or McLeach. He does a good job opposing our hero, but that's pretty standard for most villains, really. Not to mention, he's not exactly subtle with his villainy. I'm quite surprised that most of our heroes take so long to realise that he's the bad guy.
Excuse me, but these are wild beasts. It would sooner tear your head off than look at you.
On the contrary, Mr. Clayton, Daddy's theory is that these are social creatures.
C tier. Now what about Frollo? Frollo stands out as one of the more complex Disney villains. He is not a bad guy who's simply defined as evil for the sake of being evil. He's a tortured soul conflicted between religious commitment, sexual lust, and xenophobia. What makes him unnerving to watch are the extra lengths he'll go to clear his conscience. He makes for an imposing force too, mainly thanks to all the soldiers he has at his disposal, but also because he's not afraid to get physical himself. S tier. Next is Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. Gaston is a lesson in how not to be a man. A shallow and vain brute who feels self-entitled to everything he wants, including the women he's attracted to. His ego is incredibly fragile, to the point where we have no idea how he'll react if it's bruised. There are real men like Gaston out there, making him one of the more relatable Disney bad guys. But he's also simply a fun villain to watch. His self-loving arrogance and uncultured dimness make him a very entertaining comedic antagonist. Disney is in on the joke too. Plus, hey, who doesn't automatically want to sing his theme song as soon as they mention his name? A tier. Time to choose a spot for Hades. Hades is a highly beloved villain due to his dark sense of humour and charming swagger. We can't help but love him, even though we know that we're not supposed to. With James Woods voicing him like a used car salesman, delivering every line with a slimy confidence.
Please, my fate is in your lovely hands.
He can be scary too, because of his fiery short temper that'll burst at the slightest bad news. Saying all this though, he isn't the smartest of villains sometimes. I mean, he trusted his minions to kill off baby Hercules at the start of the film, but never went to make sure that the job was actually done. So he only has himself to blame when he realises that Hercules is still alive after 18 years. Yes, Scar doesn't make sure that the hyena successfully killed Simba, but that plays into his character in the film. The closer he gets to power, the lazier and more foolish he becomes. His cunning gameplay goes out the window because he's now become king. He feels above all this, he doesn't have to worry anymore. But Hades, he's supposed to be strategic, intelligent, and competent. He spent so many years looking at all the intricate details of his project. He's so passionate about getting it right. So it doesn't make sense that he looks over the possibility that Hercules survived the henchman's attack. B tier. Jafar from Aladdin, where does he belong? Like a lot of Disney villains, Jafar simply wants to steal the throne. But what makes him stand out from the crowd is the strength of his personality. He can be colourfully flamboyant and wildly expressive, especially when planning evil, but there's also this deadpan side to him when he's reluctantly trying to play the good, loyal vizier to the Sultan. But what makes Jafar really great is his banter with Iago. These two have a very different kind of henchman and antagonist relationship, because they actually work together as a team. It's not a master and slave kind of dynamic. A tier. Let's pick a tier for McLeach from The Rescuers Down Under next. McLeach does have this typical motive of wanting to hunt animals for money, but unlike many others in this Disney villain category, he has this creepy sense of humour to his cunningness.
That's no secret, boy. You see, I already got the father. Now you just tell me where Mama and those little eggs are.
He's one of the calmer Disney villains out there. His smug confidence is what gets the audience riled up. They enjoy hating him. Sure, he's not as colourful as other Disney villains, but there's still a lot of charisma to his menace. He's such an unnerving presence that we start to think, hey, hang on, what if he starts to bend the family movie rules and does something unspeakable on screen? That is a sign of an effective villain. A tier. Ratcliff from Pocahontas. What's his tier? Ratcliff does dress and act very fabulous. I mean, look at that golden sparkling outfit! He also knows how to rile up a mob with a catchy chant. The man is a born hate monger. I just wouldn't call him one of the stronger Disney villains. For starters, his more cartoony and silly animation and design make him stick out like a sore thumb compared to the more realistic looking lead characters. Digging up lots of gold is a pretty unremarkable and paper-thin motivation for him too. But most of all, I just find him too easy to forget. There's very little here that makes him stand out from all the other comical, campy Disney villains. C tier. So where should I put Scar from The Lion King? Elegant, well-spoken and refined, Scar is one of the most iconic Disney villains and a major reason why many people love The Lion King. His belief that he rightfully deserves the throne rubs off on all of his actions. From making his minions do his dirty work to keep his paws clean, to having the insulting confidence to turn his back on the current king. The way he cunningly manipulates little Simba to play a part in his terrible royal murder is rather disturbing too. Always knowing the right words to use for his trickery, just so he can make sure that Simba doesn't run off to another adult and say, "Scar told me to do this." Yes, he does become less entertaining once in power, but this is to help illustrate how self-driven intentions can make for poor leadership. Scar represents the kind of king that Simba could have become if he never grew up and matured. A tier. Lastly, I should decide where Shan Yu should go. Shan Yu is definitely one of the scariest of the Disney villains. A sinister warlord who will stop at nothing to claim China as his own. He can be pretty badass in action, plus he does have some genuinely creepy moments. And he knows when a new strategy is required when one of his plans backfires. Unfortunately, I think he's one of the least memorable Disney villains. I even forget that Mulan has an antagonist. Choi has a unique and imposing design, and yes, he makes for a worthy nemesis against Mulan. Things do get personal between them both. It's just so much personality has been drained away from him in order to make him one of the more grounded antagonists in a Disney film. When I was researching for this video and realised that Shan Yu counted for it, my immediate response was, oh yeah, him. C tier. So those were my tier list choices for the 90s Disney villains. I've been Jambareeqi, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, then feel free to like, subscribe, and share. Also, consider supporting me by making a monthly pledge to my Patreon in return for awesome rewards. Thank you. Cheerio, folks.